totalmente impresionados de la energía, de la maravillosa película, de la intensidad, de la originalidad de la historia, y además me dio tanta curiosidad que yo decía, bueno, ¿cómo pudo sacar la historia de un maestro tan sádico? Y estuve leyendo, no sé si sea verdad, tú me dirás, que tuviste un maestro de música que también fue muy duro contigo. Oh, it's not working? No. Okay, le voy a hacer la pregunta. After Whiplash, I was so interested, you know, in seeing who could have made that film about, you know, the process, which is common, but you don't see it reflected in film, you know, very often about a sadistic teacher, you know. And I was reading about you being a student of music and you having a teacher like that. I would like you to tell me more about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was very much a sort of autobiographical film in that sense, kind of writing my own experiences, and you know, in that case specifically, I guess what interested me was, which is sort of, in a way, I think maybe been a through line through all the movies that follow, is this idea of what the cost of a goal is, and what you know, what pursuing any kind of dream, whether it's artistic or not, you know, what that does to the individual, the process of becoming something, whether it's becoming a great drummer or becoming the first man on the moon. You know, it's this idea of process as being really important, trying to de-romanticize that, trying to kind of understand how people become what they become. That it's not just sort of, you don't just roll out of bed and you know, play a solo like Charlie Parker or fly to the moon, but there's an often painful, sometimes even bloody, figuratively or physically, process of becoming.
Es curioso porque también uno tiene la impresión de que para trabajar en cine, it's almost the same process. For working in cinema, maybe, I mean, you see images of Otto Preminger almost slapping everywhere, or Erik Stroheim, you know, that sometimes film directors should be or can be, or it's very likely that they are, you know, like dictators.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to be, but you know, it's yeah, film shoots are interesting, you know, kind of interest me even as an outsider, just because it's a weird sort of art form where you have to, as opposed to the sort of crafting before the shoot and the crafting afterwards, which are processes that I would say I tend to enjoy more. You know, a film shoot is the sort of part where you have to kind of, I think of it as like making art with a pistol to your head. You have to sort of make art to a stopwatch, and so kind of what. So there's, you know, maybe sometimes that leads to dictatorial behavior. But either way, it creates a sort of energy and intensity, kind of acceleration on set. You know, if you're not careful, I think it can impede one thing that I think is really important on set, which is the process of discovery and experimentation and trying to find things that you might not have thought of before. But there is a sort of a kind of energetic sprint that you get from it, from having to make your days, from having to sort of constantly fight against the real world, so to speak, and trying to embrace it and change it to your will. So yeah, it's a two-tiered process, I think, but I try not to at least turn it into a tyranny.
I was reading this, Josh, about how impressed you were also with Whiplash, you know, how impressed you were when you watched Whiplash, right? And that's how you met afterwards, because you were impressed by what he was making.
Yeah, I got a call from my agent, that would be Damien's agent as well, who said, this was back 4 years ago, this is before Spotlight, and my agent said, do you want to sit with Damien Chazelle about making a movie about Neil Armstrong? And I said, I don't know much about Neil Armstrong, and I don't know who Damien Chazelle is, because at that point, Whiplash had only been at Sundance, and I had just heard little rumors about this film. So they sent me the DVD under lock and key, and my wife and I watched it like the Wednesday morning before I was to sit with him, because they were only going to give it to me for a couple hours. My wife and I were so blown away that Damien could have been wanting to do a documentary about, anyone in the world, and I would have said yes. I just was so knocked out by the filming. And that sort of visceral intensity is something that, he spoke about when he was talking about First Man, and so it was very easy to imagine, how exciting that could be.
Well, for me, I had written La La Land at that point, but I hadn't made it yet. And so Whiplash was the only thing I had made, and I think I was still kind of fresh off having finished that. It was only a month or so after having finished that film that these producers in Los Angeles, Whit Godfrey, Isaac Klausner, and Marty Bowen, who produced the film, approached me, and they had the rights to this book, Jim Hanson's book, First Man. It was a biography of Neil. And I didn't think I wanted to do a biopic. I didn't think I wanted to do anything about Neil Armstrong. I didn't really know much about Neil Armstrong. The whole kind of subject almost sounded a little dull to me. I knew the success story of the moon landing, and that was about it. But for whatever reason, I took the book and a few documentaries that they gave me, and I think probably weeks or maybe even a couple months later, started reading and started watching The Man Walking on the Moon as being a man in grief, and how that could relate to that journey. I think suddenly made it an existential journey for me. It didn't make it, it suddenly added a layer that was not just the physical, that was emotional, psychological, existential, metaphysical, that spiritual that I just hadn't thought of before, and really fascinated me. And then once I kind of started leaning in and discovering more about the particulars then of that journey, how Neil and his family went from joining the astronaut program to being the first man on the moon, then I just learned about even more losses, even more deaths, and just this idea of someone living their life so close to death at all times, where everyone they love around them is dying almost like flies, and they themselves are kind of hanging constantly on this precipice, and not just them, but the entire program. That this program that was sold to the public as kind of a sure thing, a success story right from the outset, a glorious kind of, endeavor was in fact, took a huge toll and cost lives and could have cost even more lives. And it just gave me an appreciation of how even more heroic than I had realized the individuals who were strapping themselves into those cockpits and the families who were standing by their side really were.
And that loss, the losses that keep piling up, I was just struck by the idea that this is a story, it's a success story that's really about failure, right? It's a triumph that's really about loss. And that,